record in the cloud. So we're recording now. The very first thing I'd like to do is I'd just like to launch a brief little poll here. And the poll just has two questions, for me to keep track of what people are doing and not doing and how you're doing. I'll share the results in just a second here. 60% completed, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right, that's excellent. Thank you very much. And let's share the results. Two new people, so welcome. And how much do you know about content marketing? One person says nothing. One person says, I think I know what it is. I should have updated the text, eh? Some people say they know a bit, and one person is an expert. So I am just going to take a quick screenshot of that. So I'll tell you about that later. So I'm going to jump into the presentation here immediately. This presentation is about it's about 10 minutes. And as you know, I can't say a heck of a lot about a topic as broad as content marketing in 10 minutes. So I'm going to cover just what I think the most important bits and pieces are. And then we're going to open up the floor for discussion. And hopefully, I think that's where most of the value comes from. So let me just start sharing my second screen here. And over here, I'm just doing some housekeeping on this side. I'm going to go into presentation mode. So by now, everybody should be able to see that screen. Everybody see the title screen here?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, I hear some assenting voices there. Thank you very much. So 4 things about content marketing. Number 1, what is it? Number 2, how can you get started? I'm going to show you my writing process, because content marketing, if you choose one strategy over the other, can end up in being a lot of writing, and then tips and traps, and then we'll open it for general consumption. I always start off with showing where the topic, in other words, today we're looking at content marketing. It's definitely part of marketing, but the interesting thing about content marketing is that it overlaps quite strongly into lead nurturing, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So first question, what is content marketing? And I love to keep things as simple as they can possibly be. So I've got 3 phases for content marketing. So content marketing is a 3-step process. The first one is to create and publish content where your target market will find it. So you could be putting articles on Medium, or videos on YouTube, or blog posts on your website. And what that hopefully does is that helps you become known as an expert and build trust with your target market. And the idea then, when you become a known expert in a particular topic or area, they reach out to you when they're ready for your services or products, or they are more ready when you reach out to them to buy your products or services. Now, believe it or not, there is a organization called the Content Marketing Institute, and they have this definition for content marketing. It's a strategic marketing approach focused on creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and retain a clearly defined audience, and ultimately to drive profitable customer action. When you download the presentation from the website, you can click on these links. That's the Content Marketing Institute. Now, people often wonder, what is this content that we're creating? And there is a lot. There's articles, videos, how-tos, blog posts, book reviews, ebooks, and so on and so on. So there's a ton of stuff. But the most important things about all of this content is in their definition. First of all, the content that you create has to be valuable to your target audience. It also has to be relevant. And there's two parts to that relevance. The first part is that it obviously has to be relevant to your audience. But the second part is that it has to be relevant to what you're doing. If you're just putting content out there about everything and anything, then it's not helping your business and you're effectively wasting your time. The third thing is that your content marketing should be consistent. Now, that consistency means that if you decide to show up every week, you have to show up every week or every month. Consistency is more important than having a lot of stuff out there and then going dark for a while. Now, the one thing that I want to show you here is my stats for Medium.com as of this morning. I had 1,200 views of my articles over the last 30 days. Now, in terms of Medium, I'm not quite sure where I fit in terms of the number of views. I certainly know that I'm not up there with the top dogs, if you like. Those people get tons and tons of participants, or rather views. And by tons, I mean millions, or at least thousands. The thing that I wanted to point out here is that I have not been publishing regularly on Medium for probably 3 or 4 months now. But when you go and look at my actual content that I'm publishing on LinkedIn, this is a list of the articles that have the most views over time. And the interesting thing is that these articles were all published in 2017 or 2018. So the benefit that I'm getting here is something called the long tail effect. And the long tail effect basically means that when you publish something, you get a lot of reads, but that long tail over the life of the article, the time that it's actually up on the internet, that gives you a benefit in the long term. So even now, these top articles, I'm still getting, you know, maybe 100, 200 views per month. And that directly relates to new subscribers in my website. So the long tail effect of content marketing is engaging potential customers long after these articles were published, in some cases as much as 2 years. So keep that in mind when you think about content marketing. This is something that lasts for a long time. So the basic principle here is give freely so that you can establish your credibility and build trust, and then you can ask for their money. To me, the greatest benefit of content marketing is that I get better qualified leads to my business. People who come to you after they've read something are by definition already interested in what you have. So you have to do a lot less selling and a lot less credibility building. You can almost immediately start jumping into what are you specifically interested in and how can you move ahead with that particular sale. So that's what content marketing is very briefly. So let's look at how you can get started. And I'm going to start off here with how I got started. And I did a lot of research about content marketing, and I absolutely loved the idea. The idea of passive marketing, or rather less selling, and the idea of qualified leads coming to me. And of course, there was the ego factor as well. I decided I wanted to be a famous author. And what I then did is I purchased and I really intensely followed an article writing course. The article writing course was almost, I think, $900 US or something. This is about 3 years ago, it's probably more now. But that inspired me to go on a writing binge. And I produced 180, actually I have 192 articles on Medium. And you know, huge numbers of words. But there is a caveat to this. I produced a lot of content, but I was so focused on the writing that I forgot about why I was writing. So I made some really rookie mistakes in the beginning, like not having a call to action. at the end of articles or having cross links between articles so people would read more of my stuff. So if I had to do this again, I would follow a slightly different approach. And this is how the approach works. The first one is to decide on a strategy. And the strategy for content marketing, there's two bookends to it. On the one side, you have what I call broad appeal. When you have a large target market, it's difficult to identify them individually, but you want them to find you. So what you're looking at is regular publications so you can grow market awareness and drive them to you. My specific business, I target consultants, solopreneurs, freelancers, and small business owners. The target market that I'm looking at, it's difficult to find stats on the worldwide target market, but just to give you an idea, there's an organization called MBO Partners, and they say that there are 40 million independent workers, in other words, full-time consultants, freelance professionals, and regular side giggers in the American economy in 2019. Now that's a big market. Very difficult for me to target people individually, but that just gives you an idea of the size of the market that I'm trying to address here. On the other end of the strategy is what I call the targeted audience. When you have a small or well-defined audience, you can identify. In that case, you don't need to go out and produce tons and tons and tons of content. Certainly not the way that I've done it. You can go for a smaller, well-defined sequence of content, lower volume, and you can reach out to them. One of the best examples of that is one of my current coaching clients, a guy by the name of Doug Hartley. And Doug has worked and lived in Asia for many years of his life, and he knows how to do business in Asia. So he helps companies go do business in Asia, but he's got a very specific niche. And the first niche that he's tackling are natural cosmetics companies. And there's fewer than 1,000 of them in Canada. So for Doug, what we're doing is we're creating a series of 3 or 4 in-depth articles about how to do business in Asia, which he personally reaches out to the CEOs of those companies because he can find them. And you know, when you have a couple of hundred people in your target list, you can certainly get to each of them individually. So that's step one. You have to look at the size of your market, how difficult it is to identify them, and then decide on how much content you have to produce and whether you can reach them individually or whether you have to go to something like Reddit or Facebook or LinkedIn would be another popular one. So that's step one. Step two is designing your content. And if you're going for broad appeal, what you have to do is you have to decide on content themes or topics, and you then have to learn how to produce lots of content on a regular schedule. So if you decide you're going to be producing an article every week or every month, this is what you have to do. If you're going for a targeted audience, you have to define your sequence of content and create it. And that's really a once-off process. It's much easier than trying to target the big market or the large market, the broad appeal. And then in step three, you have to go and create and market that content. So for the broad appeal market, you have to create regularly and consistently. You're going to have to learn to use multiple channels to market. So you can't just use one. You have to go to Facebook, you have to go to LinkedIn, you have to go to Medium, all the places where you can conceivably address your target market. And you're going to have to learn how to market your content well. It's not just a question of throwing it out there and they will read it. There's too much content out there. If you're going for a more targeted audience, then you can absolutely deliver individually. You can focus on client interaction, and you don't have to have a lot of additional content. What we're doing with Doug is we're defining monthly or quarterly updates for clients who are not immediately interested in his services. So that's how you can get started. Very high level, but I hope that gives you some idea of where you can go. Now I'm going to get quite geeky here in the next section. My writing process, I actually have a checklist for doing it, believe it or not. And the checklist is kept in my Things app. It comes from a company called culturedcode.com, and it's a very popular task manager on the Mac and on iOS. Here's the checklist that I use. This is part one. I start off by drafting the article, where I go and look at the idea or topic and I write down the key points I want to get across to people. I then create a working title, and then the big work starts, the difficult work, where I create the outline or storyboard for the article. Now, depending on the size of the article, what I'm trying to write, sometimes I can just sit down and say, I want to cover the next 3 or 4 points for this particular piece of content. If it's something more lengthy, I'll go and do an outline in something called MindNode, which is a mind mapping software, or I'll use something like Trello to create a storyboard. Then there's other stuff. Obviously, they need to draft the contents. When I'm done with all of that, I edit the article. When I read through and edit for flow, I test alternative titles, add images, links, and so on. Then I do the final proofread. Then the article's done. Then I have to go and publish it. And the reason I have all of these minute steps in the checklist here is because I have before forgotten to do specific things in an article. So I've forgotten to create an abstract, and then it looks like crap on my website or something like that. So I have these in. I don't do them step and check. I do all the bits, and then I go and for publish on blog, I just go and use the checklist to make sure that I've done all the things that I need to do before I hit publish. Then go and publish it on Medium, and then I go and do the marketing for this particular article. Now, keep in mind that the articles that I write are primarily for broad appeal. So the marketing component is very important for me to get the article visible to as many people as I possibly can. So I'm getting really geeky here. Down in the bottom corner there, yes, I know I'm a total nerd, but it makes me happy, so there. A couple of tips and traps, and I'm going to start off with some of the traps. The first one is, don't forget the ultimate reason for content marketing, and that's to generate leads for your business. It doesn't matter how much you write or how well you write. If you don't generate leads from it, then you're not getting any value from it. So make sure that you do all the things you need to do, like marketing, to make sure the content gets in the right people's hands. The second one is that marketing in general, content marketing specifically, and even more specifically, broad appeal content marketing, takes time to deliver results. You're not going to suddenly see 1,000 people sign up to your subscriber list or your phone start ringing off the hook unless you have something really, really valuable and important. But the long tail effect is absolutely great. I'm getting 1 or 2 subscribers a day on my website that just come from anywhere and nowhere. And these are articles that I wrote over the last 3 years. The next trap that you will fall into is that you will be checking your views or reads or your stats. In the beginning, I think I checked it maybe 3-4 times a day just to see how things were going. Now I don't really care about it. I do check it about once a week, once every 2 weeks, to make sure that articles are getting traction. Maybe I missed something, maybe there's an opportunity for some additional marketing. But just realize that falling into the trap of checking your stats all the time is a waste of time. It takes time to work. Then a couple of tips here. The first one is that writing is a structured process. You do not have to sit at a blank screen waiting for inspiration. You can learn a process or develop your own. I might even have to develop an article or 2 about that. but writing is a structured process. It's not something where you sit and, especially for business, you don't sit in front of the screen and just wonder when inspiration is going to hit you. There are processes for that. The second thing is that the most difficult thing you're going to struggle with if you're starting out with content marketing is finding your voice. In the beginning, writing naturally the way you speak is a good way to start, but we all, and I did exactly the same, I was trying to sound formal or official or smart or cute. None of those things deliver great articles or great content. So finding your voice is something that you will have to do over time, but a good way to start is just to write absolutely naturally. Third tip, the more you write, the better you're going to get. Your first piece will always suck compared to the 100th piece. If I look back at some of the stuff I wrote in the beginning, you know, there was the odd piece that was really good every now and then. But yeah, I'm certainly a lot better now than I was then. And then the last tip, everyone starts with the first piece. No one is born an expert. No one is born a writer. It's something you have to learn. So keep that in mind. That's it for the presentation. I am already well into almost 19 minutes here, which is longer than I wanted to go, but I'm going to stop the share there and open the floor for discussion. For those of you who are new, at the bottom of your Zoom window is a chat window. Feel welcome to post questions in the chat or just to wave at the video if you have something to say or ask, or you can even raise your hand. And that is in the participants window. There's a participants button you can click that shows you everybody who's on the call. And there's a little feature there where you can raise your hand. So that was the Coles Notes introduction to content marketing. Over to you. I need to learn to speak faster. Anthony.
Neville.
Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, Neville, could you just comment on that thing about the first 50 words?
The first 50 words is a technique that I learned in the article writing course, which is a course from a company called Psychotactics. And they have an article writing course. And the idea with the first 50 words is that you start off with a little story. And you then build a bridge from that story into your content. So what you very often do is you use the first 50 words as an analogy, or it's really an attention getter. People love stories. So if you start an article with a little story and you then bridge from the story into the article, people are much more likely to be engaged than they would otherwise be. And then you'll see, I don't know if you'll remember there was right at the end, there was something called a sandwich. And that's where at the end of the article, you close the sandwich, if you like, where you tie back the closing comments in the article back to the first 50 words. And that packages it nicely. Our brains, when we read things, we like to have closure. And if you just had the first 50 words there as a little bit of an article or a little bit of a story, then it's sort of, you know, it's nice to have. But if you then close it off at the end, you bring people back to the beginning, you close off the story, and they, you know, the story arc, I think, is complete rather than just leaving it dangling. So that's where it's never 50 words. It's lots of words. It can be a few words, lots of words. But it's a nice technique that I picked up from him. I don't always use it, but it is a very nice technique to use.
Hey, Neville, I have a
And I,
question for you.
sorry, go ahead, Carrie.
Yeah, I have a question for you about the number of words, actually, because you're talking about the first
Yeah,
50.
yeah,
What it like, okay, so I'll just say it. I really struggle to write some, well, you know this, but for
yeah.
everyone else's benefit, I have had an intention to write a blog for about 2 years. And every time I sit down to write, I get writer's block, or I find some excuse like I should go vacuum, or you know what I mean? I'll do anything to not actually sit down and get to task. And I
Yeah.
think part of the intimidation for me is thinking I have to come up with 500, 600 words. So, what is sort of the trend now as far as length of articles and yeah, that kind of thing?
Here's, I'll give you a multi-part answer, Carrie.
Okay.
The number of words matters less than the engagement you get.
Okay.
My friend Anthony Down Under is famous for longer and mostly shorter form articles that sometimes get great engagement on LinkedIn. So with that proviso around it, if you are writing long form articles, then you can go and look at a place like Medium, or you can just do a Google search for Medium optimal article length. And what they will say is that the optimal article length takes about 7 minutes to read. Now, this is research that they've done based on the statistics that they have of millions and millions and millions of articles on Medium and how long they can measure people to be engaged with those articles. Now, given that most people can read about 250 to 300 words per minute, that gives you a lot of words. You're sort of closer to the 2000 range now. Mm-hmm. But that's less important than the actual engagement you get. So you have to be a little bit careful with that. Sometimes people get lost, like they'll read the introduction and a little bit. When I look at my stats, the number of people that actually complete an article all the way through and actually then clap, which is my indication of success on Medium specifically, is relatively small. It's below 10%. It's probably below 5%. Mm-hmm. I would say that if you have an article that is less than 600 words, it's going to be trivial. If you want to deliver something that is more in depth, sometimes you want to deliver trivial stuff. And I don't mean that in a demeaning way. You want to give somebody a quick how-to or a quick inspiration or something like that. And then 10 words might be enough. But if you want to deliver something in depth, something that people are going to use, just think for yourself. All of you here, how many of my articles do you read end to end? Chances are very, very few of them, yeah, because we don't read, we scan. We try and pick up the important bits. And that's something I certainly can get better at, is helping people scan and read the important bits in an article. Mm-hmm. The other part of the answer there is that if you think that you have to just sit down and wait for inspiration, you're not doing it the right way. And I think we've had this discussion before. Yeah. The art of generating topics or stuff to write about is finding ideas. Finding ideas happens in two ways. Either they come from externally, so the questions that I get during calls like this, they all become candidates for articles in future. And I've got a very quick way of capturing them. Questions that I get during my coaching sessions, stuff that I read, all of those generate ideas. And as long as I develop the discipline to capture those ideas, then it's not that difficult to start generating ideas for articles. The other thing is that if you try and write about something too broad, you're going to have trouble. Then you will run into writer's block, because the topic is so big that there is a ton of stuff to cover, and trying to write everything that everybody should know is almost impossible. So you have to drill down, break down, break down, break down. The technique that I use is with mind mapping. Yeah, I put up a mind map there, I throw the central idea down, and then I start generating sub-ideas off the main topic. Then I take each one of those sub-ideas and I break that into smaller and smaller topics. Now that is worth an article, idea generation for content writing. And just how do you do it?
Thank you.
Does that answer the question, Carrie?
Yeah, and I think it speaks to your point about engagement, because like I follow Seth Godin. I subscribe to his newsletter, and sometimes it's a 15-minute read, sometimes it's 2 paragraphs this long.
Yeah.
But he's got like 1 million followers. So people will link on to whatever is of interest. And so he's going for that mass appeal. I'm not. So I think I need to think a little bit more about my audience and what they need.
Yeah, you know, it also differs. If you're writing how to do a specific thing, then the article is as long as it needs to be. If you're writing something that is more philosophical and less practical steps of how to do something, then it can effectively be any length.
Okay.
But as long as you get the engagement.
Cool. Thank you.
Great question, Carrie. Thank you. I'm almost tempted to dive into MindNode here and give you a quick demo, but I'll leave the floor for more questions. Kim, nice to see you.
Yes, thank you so much for having and hosting this again. Really excellent information. So what mediums, like I've been toying with this and I've got about 5 blogs that I've started, and I did a couple on LinkedIn, but what mediums are you using to actually start at the beginning to build your audience? So Instagram, for example, Instagram and Twitter, I have those accounts, and LinkedIn, and then I have my own website, and just where do you start and how do you build?
Okay. You know, I guess at a stretch, you could say that Twitter and Instagram are content marketing platforms. I don't regard them as that. Yeah, Twitter to me is a way of announcing things or participating in things or being social with people. Instagram, pretty much the same. When most people think of content marketing, you're thinking of long form articles or videos or ebooks or content that takes a little bit of time to consume. It's not just a brief glance and then it's gone. So to me, things like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, they are marketing channels. They're not platforms where I would host content. Personally, I obviously have my blog, and I went through quite a thought process in the beginning. I thought that rather than creating and maintaining my own blog, I would just use Medium as my blog, because you can go into Medium, you can create what they call a publication, and you can just put all your articles in that publication and it effectively becomes your blog. That's an easy way out, and if you're not very technically inclined or you don't want to jump through hoops, then that's a very valid way to go. But what I decided is I wanted to have my own blog under my own website so that I would have more backlinks. In other words, other people linking to my content from the outside. So that would all link back to my website. What I would then do is I'd publish it on Medium. I would advertise it on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, places like that. And that's what I use the content, or rather my marketing platform for. You can also use LinkedIn to post long form content if that's where your audience hangs out. You can do it on Facebook if you really want to. You just have to be careful. Facebook is a little bit like Twitter. There's a lot of content that runs very, very quickly. So it's easy to get lost in the noise. And by having my own blog, I also have control over the display of my content. how it's presented to people. So when people go to my blog, it's much easier for them to consume that. Does that answer the question, Kim?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Yeah, lots
Okay.
to think about. And the platform that you mentioned that you start with, Medium, what is that again?
Medium.com. I guess it's not a writing platform so much as a content platform. All of it is written content. There's no video or anything else on there.
Oh,
And it's broadly categorized into, everything. There's a COVID thread on there at the moment. There is stuff about business, stuff about personal growth. There are people who write book length content on Medium. It's worthwhile checking out. You have to jump through a couple of hoops to get a good readership on Medium. It's work, like marketing. You have to market on Medium as well. Couple of questions here. Rini, does the same stats apply to the length for ebooks? And the answer is no. Here's the thing that I've seen, and I think you guys can think about as well. If you ever download a lead magnet from a website and it's stuff that's set in 72-point type and huge big letters, and the actual content is so minimal that it's almost trivial, the impression that you get of that content and therefore of the brand behind it is that these guys are amateurs. They're not really helping. So with an ebook can be as little as 10 pages if it delivers value. My beginner's guide to the Tornado Method is about 35 pages. I have another ebook, the Business Readiness Workbook, which is about 21 pages. I don't know exactly what the word count is, but that is, how much will people consume? How much do they find useful? I think the usefulness of something is much more important than the length. And then the measure of how useful it is the engagement that you get with that particular content. I've downloaded, the ultimate guide to whatnot so many times, and you get this little 1 or 2 page trivial thing that you just realize this is just absolutely silly. There's no real value from that. Question from Karen, can you please elaborate on videos for content marketing? I'm going to throw that over to Anthony, because I see, Anthony, you're elaborating on your marketing strategies here.
Okay, so with Karen, I'm going to find Karen. Yeah, okay, so what was the question is around videos?
Yeah, can you please elaborate on videos for content marketing?
So Karen, yeah, okay, so video is becoming really much more important, and even in the last 3 months, because people, like back in November, nearly everybody on this call would have said, I don't do video. I can't do video, right? I'm no good on camera. I hate the sound of my voice. And, I just say, look, if you hate the sound of your voice, that's fine. Just stop speaking ever to anyone. It's the same voice, whether it's on video or not. You just don't get to hear it until you actually watch yourself on video. But now that excuse is pretty much, it's a little bit like in the 1980s when we said, look, I hate answering machines, or I hate voicemail. I mean, now, like, no, or in the 1960s, people say, I hate using the telephone. It's not really relevant anymore. Like, it's, that excuse is gone. Like, we're all on video right now. Okay. And it's being recorded.
Yeah.
So one of the big advantages, one of the big problems that we have with video is that for most of us, we tend to equate it with TV ads, like really slick, you've got to win an Oscar kind of videos. And so that puts up a huge barrier between us and the audience, which is exactly the same problem with writing blog posts. is that that's the problem with the blank page syndrome, is that I don't know who I'm writing for. I don't know what a good result is. And so I've put up a middleman between me and the audience. And so anything that you can do that is going to simplify that, going to remove that middleman. So get rid of the fancy editing or the expectation that you've got to have captions. Do it as an interview rather than just you standing on camera on your own, staring at that light. What you're really doing is you're making it easier to communicate who you are, what you think, how you work, how you think, communicate your personality. So you're actually doing a favor to your audience if they're happy to consume video. And so if you say the only way that I'm going to answer, let me answer your question right now. Imagine if you had said, tell me about video. Okay, like you've just asked that question, Karen. And my response is silence. And I just chat to you and I say, I will write an article in response. And I don't actually answer your question. Like you're sort of saying, what's wrong, Anthony? Just tell me. Over video, I will, because I'm using video to communicate to you, because that's the natural forum for us to do right now, isn't it? So you're actually already on video. Okay, you're actually doing video right now.
Just for you,
that thing about. Oh,
go
I
ahead,
was just
Karen.
gonna say, I'm glad you brought up the thing about creating that barrier, because that's exactly what I was thinking. Do I need to hire a videographer? Do we need to do this whole like spiel and formulate everything together? And is that overboard right now? And what's looking too amateur right now?
Okay, so I would go for amateur, and I had a video on YouTube that's had 60,000 views. I didn't even appear on camera.
There you go. How do we do that?
You caught the wave. I'll show you another quick little trick here, Karen. This was suggested by Carrie, because I'm in the process of redoing my productized services course into bite-sized lessons, 57 lessons. It's a labor of love, I can tell you that. And the first video that I recorded, I look at it now and I think, holy smoke, man, you are so stiff and you're so formal. So Carrie suggested, she sent me this picture, and this picture, I'm going to have to turn off my virtual background. You can see my messy office for a minute. Just bear with me for a second while I do that, so you can
just put it closer to the camera and that won't be a problem.
Okay, let's see how this one works. Carrie sent me this picture. This was taken at a Flames hockey game where she and I and two other colleagues, friends attended. And she said, put this up. This is actually, this little board the picture is now on a board. I put that up below the camera and I talk to these idiots. Yeah. And I say that in the most friendly way. I talk to these guys. They are the people that I'm talking to while I'm creating the videos. That's been a great help for me personally. So little tricks like that might help you as well. There I look pretty again. I think, in terms of video, if you can deliver substantial value and you can develop, and I'm using the word with care, if you can develop the engaging personality on video, people will engage with it. To me, the downside of video is I can't scan video. I have to watch it from beginning to end or fast forward through what I think are the boring bits. So that's why, I think as a general rule of thumb, you want to keep your videos relatively short, 3 minutes or less. And it's more suitable for some stuff. It's not, sometimes screencasts can show you how to do things. So it's a useful methodology then. I would recommend go to Anthony's YouTube channel. Just search for Anthony English on YouTube. He's got some really great content there, even though you're redoing the whole channel now, right?
Actually, that really comes back to Carrie's question around the blog post. Interestingly, is that because my content was very broad, I realized that what I really needed to do was bring it all in under the one theme, and that one theme is around confidence, even if it's technical stuff that I'm teaching them or around pricing or something like that. And so, and then it's not really even a question of practicing or anything like that. It's really just around cutting out that middleman, using really very, very simple content. And you don't. And the other thing, what you just said about Neville, about not cleaning up you can clean up the content. I've just gone and deleted like 20 videos of mine on YouTube that are just no longer, they weren't performing and they're not really relevant. But the other thing is that, yes, it's true that you can't scan video, and most people will not watch even a short video right through to the end. But usually for most video platforms, there is also a chance to put in a description. Like if you read the news and they've got a video in there, like if you one of your online newspapers and they've got a video in there, there'll be enough in the video to kind of make you want to watch the video, but there'll be enough in the article around the video or the description around the video that you don't actually have to watch it. So you're really accommodating both audiences there.
Yep.
I'll actually post in the chat the my YouTube channel and yeah.
By the way, Anthony, I will pay you real money if you can put together a video course on how to become as relaxed and confident as you are on video.
You know, that took me 10 minutes. Seriously, that took me 10 minutes. I've never had any acting experience. Okay, I'm not an introvert, but I've never had any acting experience or stage experience, and it did not come naturally. I hated the sound of my voice. I kept, I scratched myself, or the children are in the background, or there's a dog barking, and I was recording the whole thing again. And then I had a 10-minute conversation with myself, basically saying, Anthony, you're never going to win an Oscar. Get over it. That was it. And I haven't won the Oscar yet. I think because the borders are closed and the planes are not flying, that's the only reason. Yeah.
Guys, any other questions about content marketing? Anything that you have always been afraid to ask but never asked? Now you have the opportunity. The question is, does it work?
I'd like to find out about the call to action, because that's a real weakness.
The call to action.
Yeah, you said that in your earlier content you didn't do it.
Yeah. I made the mistake in the beginning of writing these great articles and posting them and hoping for people to read them, and then nothing. People would read this stuff, but what do they do? You know, so now by default, I have, at least at the end of the article, sometimes in the article itself, I have a call to action that says, if you want more like this, subscribe to my newsletter or download this guide here or something. But if you don't give people the opportunity to then take it a step further, guess what? They don't have the opportunity. But if you do give them the option to either subscribe to a newsletter or read a different article, then you have a fighting chance. So by default now, one of the steps that I do when I publish an article is I go and look at all my past articles and I think, which ones could I reasonably link back to? Now I edit the text, I add in links back to that content so that people can actually click on something that they might find more interesting or also interesting. So all of those things, all of that is calls to action, either links or join my newsletter or download something for free. That's the call to action. If you don't have it in your content, all you're doing is you're shouting at the world. Yeah, and people who really want to listen to you, to what you have to say, don't have the opportunity to sign up for something where they get advance notice of that. From Kim to Neville, where do you store all your content? That's a good question, Kim. Kim, can I just clarify, when you say store all your content, do you mean where I write it, or
how do you store it and cache it? Like, do you have a third-party server or service that you use for Google or Microsoft or something? And then how do you keep track of all of it, I guess, if you've done 190 articles and now, you know, indexing it? And I'm just kind of curious how you manage all of that.
Okay, so my writing platform is something called Ulysses. It's a writing app that's available on Mac and iOS. It's a minimalist writing app. Because I love shiny things, I have to avoid the temptation of formatting stuff while I'm writing. And whenever I get into Microsoft Word or something like that, I want to start pretty printing and formatting stuff, and then I lose the focus that I need to write the content. Ulysses has an internal database where it stores everything. So that's one place. The actual completed content is hosted on my blog, which is hosted by Squarespace.
Gotcha.
So I pay Squarespace $29 a month or something, and I get the full hosting experience. Medium have their own servers. I just want to make a quick technical note about something called cross-publishing or cross-posting. If you write an article on your blog and you also publish it on Medium, Google will penalize you because you have duplicate content. The way to get around that, if you do want to publish on Medium specifically, or any other platform for that matter, Medium has an article import capability. And what the import does is you give it the URL of your original article, and Medium will set something called the canonical link, which is the original source of the content. And that just tells it that, yes, you're publishing it on another platform, but here's a link to the original content, and then it won't penalize you. So if you're posting the same stuff on multiple places, just make a note, make sure the canonical link is set correctly. Cindy has a meeting, so she's out. She says it's time to get writing. Guys, we're pretty close here. I can go on for another 10, 15 minutes, so I'll keep the call open for you guys. Questions either about content marketing or about life, the universe, and business in general? Anything? Nothing? All right, here's a quick little poll just to make sure that this was useful or not. If you don't mind, this one has 2 questions. So if you don't mind, give me a quick bit of feedback there. Three of 10. I know some people might be lurking. I see Diana is on the call as well. I believe she's in London in the UK, so that would be 11 o'clock at night by now. Okay, I'm going to close the poll here in 3, 2, 1, and share the results. Quite a lot or fantastic. Thank you very much. Interestingly, which topics would you like to see more of? Marketing is always a hit. Interesting to see that lead nurturing is picking up some value here. and tools for small businesses. That's all good. Lead nurturing, yes, I will definitely add lead nurturing into my topic list, my content list here. So, open questions, guys, for as long as you want to stick around.
Well, since there's opportunity here and no questions
Sure.
coming up, I'd like to ask another one. So I've been doing quite a bit of research for a couple of articles or blogs that I'm writing. And I often think that sometimes some of these people offer too much information, and it's almost like say a checklist. You know, a checklist. So for somebody smart, you could take a checklist and have a pretty good foundation to build the solution to a problem that you might have by receiving a checklist from an expert.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered if you could comment on your thoughts about that.
Yeah, it's something that I see quite often. How do you not give away the farm? And again, there's a bit of a multi-part answer to that. People who are capable of taking a checklist and reverse engineering the process behind it are few and far between. Yeah, those people are not your customers.
Mm.
It's the people who actually need your help who are your customers.
Mm.
So I tend to err on the side of giving away more rather than less, and build trust with people that way. What I'm probably not good enough at yet is either hinting at or talking about the bits that I don't give away.
Mm.
Generally, my principle is I will easily tell people what to do, but I will sometimes shy away from giving them the detailed how to, because then you are giving them the techniques. Depending on the kind of business that you're in, very often it's your insight that provides the value and the process that you then help people implement. You can go and Google just about anything and get, you know, good results from that. And Karen, if you don't mind if I use you as an example, Karen's an interior designer. You can go and Google interior designs and get a million ideas. The number of people that are actually capable of putting together a coherent, attractive, beautiful interior design, few and far between. Yeah, interior designers are trained to do that. They probably have a natural knack and a love for doing it. My wife has a fantastic knack for doing it in a particular style, but most people, 99% of people don't. Yeah, that's why I hide my office behind me. I use the excuse that it's more important to produce stuff than it is to have a pretty environment. That's my excuse. But you know, generally, the rule of thumb for me is tell them what to do, even tell them how to do it a little bit if you deliberately want to do that. But you know, productized services, you can go and read the articles on my blog. There's a category just for productized services, and you could reverse engineer how to do all of that. But what you won't get are 57 bite-sized lessons with all the little with all the tools around it. I think I'm now up to 9 worksheets in the course, and the step-by-step knowledge and insight that comes with that. That's, you know, if someone's asked me for information, I've never said no. I'm always happy to give them the information. If they get stuck, they can really use my help. Does that answer the question, Kim?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, that's great. Good. I like the word, you know, insight and your experience and background and the depth that goes behind any one of those.
Yeah, there's actually an article on my website on this topic.
Okay, well, great.
Yeah, I think if you go and look for giving away the farm or give away the farm, you'll find the article.
Great, thank you.
couple more questions here. Rini asks, what video tools do I use? Are you talking about video tools that I use for creating my course, Rini?
More for when you go onto YouTube.
I'm not on YouTube. Anthony, do you want to comment on that for your YouTube videos?
Sure. What? Yeah, just really whatever tools you've got handy. That's the best camera to use. I very often will record a video or part of a video just using my iPhone, just holding my iPhone without even an external camera.
Okay.
It's not ideal. The same thing with recording your screen. So that's what the screencast is. So that's if you don't want to be on camera, or you just say, here's how to click here and you don't do this. Here's an article I'm thinking of writing, whatever it is that you want to show. You can just show your screen and you're just talking. That's just called the screencast. And once again, whether you're on an Apple Mac, like you don't have to do any fancy editing or anything, you can do that later if you want to, after you've done a few videos and got confident. But yeah. And yeah, so on the Apple, are you using an Apple Mac or using Windows or something else?
Windows.
Yeah. So yeah, there are plenty of programs available, such as Camtasia for Windows.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which basically just record your screen and you just keep talking as you're typing, and that's it.
Yeah. Green, I think all of us here are using built-in cameras on computers.
Yeah.
Or, you know, a webcam attached to it. That can be pretty fine. The only thing that I have in addition here is I obviously have the earbuds because the sound is so much better. And I have a desk lamp just behind my screen, which I've tilted so that it shines on my face. Otherwise, the cameras in your computer will try and adapt to lighting all the time, and you'll sometimes see shifts in lighting. So if you're really professional, you'll see the professional studios don't have windows because they want to control all of the light that shines on their subjects. That's how you get to have a consistent experience. Anthony has a window up in front of him, so that gives him natural light. If you're looking at recording video, most current iPhones are absolutely capable of doing that. The selfie camera typically is less capable than the backward-facing camera. If I would spend money on anything, the first thing I would spend money on is a microphone, and you can get away as cheap as using the plug-in earbuds you get with your phone. The microphone on that is better than the built-in microphone, and it helps to cut off external noise and stuff. But that's probably the most important thing, is getting the audio right, which is quite ironic being on video. If the audio sucks, people will have a problem. You can just listen to the voice quality of different people here. Anthony's using a USB microphone, so it sounds better as well. Another question from Silke. When I started to read your blogs, I did it mainly for entertainment, didn't even think about, but I continue to read about every blog post you published as if it was a good book, and now I've learned about your content and begin to start to look for information. I'm very glad to hear that. That's good to know, Silke. Thank you. Guys, more questions, comments? Who wants to see how idea generation works? I'll need a volunteer. Rini, you want to volunteer?
Okay, how am I volunteering?
Okay, you're going to tell me how this bus works. I'm going to share my screen here in just a second. Bear with me just for a second. And guys, I'm going to do this for 2 or 3 minutes, just to give you a very quick idea of how this works. Let me just move some stuff away and some stuff away. So what you see on the screen here is a product called MindNode, and this is a mind mapping product. So Rini, what kind of business are you in?
Consulting.
Rini's consulting business. All right. What problems do your clients have?
It's around, all my stuff is around education.
What kind of education?
K to 12.
Okay. What else?
And typically mathematics. And so their issues, the people I work with are businesses that are trying to sell to K to 12 individuals. So there's lots of different ways to do it. So there's things like RFPs. So how do you fill out an RFP? You work with the government. You work with superintendents. You work with teachers. You work with parents, principals. So they're always looking for content. What type of content do they need to produce?
No, let me clean this up just here for a second. I'm doing some, in fact, this one. So your content is going to be for these people, right?
Yes.
Okay. When they're dealing with the government,
it's for the businesses that are producing content for all of these people.
Okay.
So in a way, it's kind of a multi-stakeholder level that I'm working with.
All right. What problems would they run into while they're dealing with the government?
They need to have their product trusted, so they have to have it endorsed, and they have to have it, as you're smiling, Anthony, they have to have that the product is okay for kids that are K to 12.
Sorry, the pricing?
The product is good for K to 12. So the math lessons, the content, does it match the curriculum that they have?
Okay. Now, guys, you can see how quickly I'm creating the mind map here. Rini, give me a couple of ideas. What can I tell them about trusted products? The very first thing is how to make sure your product is a trusted product for the K to 12 market.
Right. So it has to be on a secure server.
I don't want the details yet. Just look at the topics that I'm generating off this, okay? What happens when my product is not trusted? Yeah, how to leverage previous products that were trusted to generate trust in new products. Okay, so there's 3 topics there. How to find the curriculum, important changes in the 2020 to 2021 curriculum. Special needs, in K to 12, remote. I'm just blurbing out ideas here. Remote learning for K to 12, which would probably fit under that category there. But the principle that I'm applying here is I just started asking you about your business, and you said these are businesses trying to sell to K to 12 education. These are all the stakeholders that they have to deal with. And then I just started thinking, even for an outsider, I've generated 7 article ideas in a few minutes. The principle that works here is that you go down and you drill down into more and more and more detail. And believe it or not, every one of these things your audience probably don't know. Or if they do know it, there's another article or another topic that they don't know about. So this is the basic process that I use for generating topics.
Okay, cool.
Rini, you want to take a screenshot of that?
Sure. Got it.
Okay. So that was a quick demo of the principle. Stick around, you'll see more geeky stuff.
Thank you. That was good.
Yeah, it really is, you know, a combination of this kind of breaking down into finer and finer detail. And when you go and put together a marketing calendar, you can say this month is budgeting month, you know, how to get hold of budgets, how to understand budgets, what you can expect from the Calgary Board of Education, the Edmonton Board of Education, you know, how to deal with difficult bureaucrats, you know, how to stroke a principal's ego if that's relevant, and so on. It's just ideas coming up. Some of those ideas seem silly, but I always encourage people, throw the idea out there, capture it, and then you'll make a lot more progress. I'm amazed sometimes at the stuff that actually gets traction in content marketing. I had one article which really was one of those you know, flows of consciousness. I sat down one day and I started writing about the word authentic and how I hate the word authentic. And it ended up, the article was so good that a Medium contacted me and they actually had someone do an audio version of it, which I was quite pleased about. It was the only one so far, but it was obviously a topic that attracted people, how to live a more authentic life. So even if the idea sounds stupid now, just throw it in there.
Do you think that this might be a good topic? I'm just going to throw it out there for you, Neville. Do you think this might be a good topic for you to maybe create a product around, or something that, because a group of people that are, you know, not within your consulting or your business, perhaps that might just even be good for, you know, people like Carrie, for instance. She was saying earlier that she really struggles with what to write on and things like that. So if you, even if you had a session, or I don't know, or she had a couple of people that sat with her and did a brainstorming session, just like you suggested on your mind mapping tool, it might be really helpful for somebody that's got that writer's block or whatever, right?
Yeah, so you're looking at a possible brainstorm. This is, I'm capturing that note. Sessions for content creation. That's actually a good idea. I like the brainstorm idea, where I can actually put up a mind map like this and I can send you the mind map. The problem with self-study courses is that it's very difficult to generate inspiration by reading something. So sometimes you can. What I'm doing quite a bit with my productized services course is to use real life examples, so you can see what other people are doing. So that might be useful as well, but that's a good thought, thank you. Karen, you have your hand up. Do you still have your hand up?
I clicked it earlier with the other thing that we were doing and I didn't realize it was still on, sorry.
That's absolutely fine. Guys, I'm going to stop the recording here.